Well, a stunning op-ed reveals a huge leadership vacuum at the third largest agency in the United States government. Shockingly, more than 40% of the senior positions at Homeland Security are either empty or they have an acting placeholder who's in the role. And now the chairman of the House Homeland Security Committee, Mike McCall, is drawing attention to this. He says this speaks volumes about the Obama administration's commitment to keeping our country safe, in his opinion.
That, to me, is a signal from the administration that they're not taking Homeland Security seriously. They're not taking national security seriously. You had a piece just before this about a terrorist wannabe trying to fly out of the country. And, you know, every day I get warnings of terrorists trying to fly into the country. And if we don't have a head of Customs and Border Patrol, if we have an acting deputy secretary, we don't have a current secretary, we don't have a watchdog, and the inspector general. Watchdog position within the Department of Homeland Security, and so many other countless positions that we don't have time to go into. That's a failure of leadership.
Stephen Yates is former deputy assistant to Vice President Dick Cheney for National Security Affairs from 2001 to 2005. Stephen, good morning to you.
Good morning,
Martha. You know, now they have announced this nomination of Jay Johnson, who's the former general counsel of the Defense Department, as the fourth Secretary of Homeland Security. There were a lot of questions about whether or not someone like Ray Kelly might have been better for that spot, or the commissioner from Boston might have been better for that spot. But this reveals that there's just Swiss cheese all through this whole agency.
Right. It's one of those things that's conspicuous. The Obama administration's transition after the 2008 election and after the 2012 election actually have been longer than most of its predecessors, even when you compare it to, say, the 2000 election, where there was a protracted counting of the vote and a shortened transition. And then when a president himself has a focus on a particular policy area, the White House team naturally takes it on them to push for vacancies to get filled and accountability from those agencies. And so it's reasonable to conclude, if there isn't a similar focus on getting these positions filled by the White House, then the president clearly hasn't targeted this as an area of personal priority or concern.
You know, Mike McCall, as we mentioned, brought attention to this in an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, and he says that the situation at ICE is not much better. John Morton resigned over the summer, and we all remember that story. He was replaced by John Sandweg on an acting basis, so they have a lot of acting administrators in these roles. And then the CFO in financial management at DHS was pulled from there over to the IRS. So perhaps that is the priority.
It's clearly remarkable. I mean, really, you only have one of two ways to go on this. One is that these missions and functions in the DHS are not important enough, and perhaps we shouldn't fund them and fill them. Or they are very important, and it's really a dereliction of leadership to leave them vacant or filled by bureaucrats for a year or more at a time. That means that important functions are not being tended to.
You know, they would say that border security is stronger than ever. So perhaps it's the latter, in the administration's opinion, that a lot of these positions don't need to be filled, that maybe this agency has gotten too large. It shocks me that something that was created after September 11th is now the third largest agency in the government.
Right, and it's reasonable to ask, and all of us should, especially these tight budget times, whether that should be the case. I mean, the Department of Homeland Security, sort of like the Director of National Intelligence, was a patchwork of functions from other agencies meant to centralize key functions of government that were a very, very high priority, and to do them better. And not just do them better, be seen and be accountable doing them better. And I can't say that really that emergency response to put these patches together post 9/11 is the way it should go forever. And right now is a good opportunity to reevaluate what would be the right approach.
All right. Thank you very much, Stephen Yates. Always good to talk to you. Very interesting op-ed in the Journal. We encourage everybody to check it out. Thanks, Stephen. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Martha.